Hello everyone, my name is Jolie. Today, I'll be presenting my analysis of The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. This presentation focuses on how Shakespeare uses three literary devices: dramatic irony, imagery, and hyperbole. Through these devices, Shakespeare creates humor by emphasizing misunderstandings, ridiculous situations, and exaggerated behavior throughout the play. In The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare, Shakespeare presents a comedic story about Peruchio, a determined gentleman who attempts to marry and tame the strong-willed Caterina, while her younger sister, Bianca, has several eager suitors. Set in Padua, Italy, the play follows the challenges and misunderstandings surrounding marriage, courtship, and family expectations as the characters use clever tricks and disguises to achieve their goals. Through these humorous events, Shakespeare suggests that appearances can be deceiving and that relationships are often shaped by wit, communication, and social expectations. Therefore, Shakespeare effectively brings humor through dramatic irony, imagery, and hyperbole. To begin with, Shakespeare uses dramatic irony to create humor by allowing the audience to know more than the characters to know. For example, while pretending to be wealthy Lucentio in front of Baptista, Tranio confidently declared, "Keep house and ports and servants as I should." At this moment, Tranio was successfully convincing Baptista that he was a wealthy gentleman, while readers already know that he was actually Lucentio's servant in disguise. The fact that the audience knew who Tranio really was created humor because they enjoyed watching Baptista completely believe his false identity. Furthermore, Tranio continued his deception by confidently claiming, "I am my father's heir and only son." At this point, Tranio further convinced Baptista that he was the real Lucentio by pretending to come from a wealthy and respectable family. Because the audience already knew that Tranio was only a servant, his bold lie became even more amusing as Baptista continued to trust him without any suspicion. Thus, Shakespeare effectively uses dramatic irony to create humor by allowing the audience to enjoy the misunderstanding between Tranio and Baptista. Secondly, Shakespeare uses imagery to create humor by helping the audience vividly imagine ridiculous scenes. For example, when Petruchio arrived at his wedding, Biondello described his unusual appearance by saying, "A new hat and an old jerkin, a pair of old breeches." At this moment, Biondello was describing Peruchio's mismatched and shabby clothing as he arrived to marry Caterina, shocking everyone at the wedding. The vivid description allows the audience to picture Petruchio's absurd appearance, making the scene humorous because a groom is expected to dress elegantly rather than like a beggar. Biondello continued by describing Petruchio's horse as possessed with the glanders and like to mouse in the chine. As Biondello depicted Petruchio riding a sick and miserable horse, the image of his entry became even more ridiculous. These exaggerated visual details helped the audience imagine the comical scene, making Petruchio's entrance unforgettable and increasing the humor of the play. Consequently, Shakespeare effectively uses imagery to create humor by allowing the audience to picture Petruchio's ridiculous appearance and laugh at the contrast between his behavior and expectations of a wedding. Lastly, Shakespeare uses hyperbole to create humor by exaggerating Petruchio's words and actions. For example, while arguing that no one has the right to keep Caterina from him, Petruchio boldly declares, "She is my goods, my chattels." At this moment, Petruchio was insisting that Caterina belonged to him and comparing her to his personal property after their marriage. This statement is humorous because Petruchio greatly exaggerates his authority by describing his wife as if she were merely an object that he owns, making his speech sound ridiculous rather than realistic. In addition, he continued the exaggeration by claiming, "She's my house, my household stuff." Here, Petruchio expanded his comparison by listing Caterina alongside his house and household belongings. further emphasizing his exaggerated claim of ownership. The audience recognizes that no one can literally own another person, so Petruccio's excessive comparison becomes amusing because of its absurdity and over the top nature. Ultimately, Shakespeare effectively uses hyperbole to create humor by making Petruccio's exaggerated claims so extreme that they become entertaining. As dramatic irony, imagery, and hyperbole create humor throughout the Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare allows the audience to appreciate the literary devices that make the play entertaining. Throughout the Taming of the Shrew, dramatic irony allows the audience to enjoy misunderstandings between characters, imagery paints vivid and ridiculous scenes that enhance the comedy, and hyperbole exaggerates Petruccio's words and actions to make them more entertaining. To conclude, Shakespeare's skillful use of these literary devices makes the Taming of the Shrew an enduring comedy. Now, I would like to talk about the central theme of the Taming of the Shrew. Shakespeare shows that appearances can be deceiving, while relationships are shaped by wit, communication, and social expectations. Throughout the play, characters often disguise their identities or behave differently from how they appear. At the same time, their relationships develop through clever communication and expectations placed on them by society.